Welcome to the stream. Welcome back. Welcome back. We got a beautiful day here for some fantasy football. You see it on the screen. We're going to go ahead and get into a best ball mania draft for a number of different reasons. We did technically miss a day this past weekend for 4th of July, so I was going to give myself a pass. But that in combination with the new room setup, and honestly, just because I wanted to, we're going to get into Best Ball Mania, $25 entry, $10 million in prizes. First place gets $2 million. Highest score at the end of the season gets $1 million. So on and so forth. Let's add a little bit of money to the funny. All right, my bad. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into this. If you want to get into some Best Ball Mania drafts, go to underdogfantasy.com. Use code FFX54 when you go ahead and make your first deposit. Anywhere from $10 to $100 will get matched at 100%. So if you put in $100, you will get $100 in return that very same second. So $200 total. You can get into 8 Best Ball Mania fantasy drafts for that. You can get into 40 puppy drafts when another one of those comes out. So on and so forth. Get in there, have some fun. Don't look at it as betting. Look at it as $5 to $25 of fun for an hour. So you really can't beat that. I don't know where else you're going to go to pay that little for that much fun. So we are going to get right into it. Found a lobby pretty quick, as you usually do with these Best Ball Mania drafts. So we're pick 4. This is a little different for us. We don't usually get this range. I'm usually either 2 or 6. I'm going to see how it shakes out. I think that if the first 3 picks don't go JT, Cooper Kupp, and Christian McCaffrey, then I'll pick one of them. And if it does go those 3 in whatever order, then I'm going to go ahead and take Justin Jefferson right away. I've said it once, say it again. I think Justin Jefferson is going to be the wide receiver number 1. And I don't know why I'm not picking him over Cooper Kupp because I truly do believe that. So maybe I should start putting my money where my mouth is. I have a hard time passing up Cooper Kupp when I do get him just because you can't get him a little bit later, whereas Justin Jefferson, I've had him fall to 6 or 7 before. So I feel like the value is better in Cooper Kupp, but at the end of the day, the value is where the number 1 receiver is. So maybe I really should start taking Justin Jefferson. But we see Christian McCaffrey go off the board first. So expect Jonathan Taylor and then Cooper Kupp, I'm assuming. Justin Jefferson. Okay, so we probably will go Cooper Kupp here. I think Justin Jefferson is the number 1 receiver this year, but I don't think Jamar Chase is. So we will go Cooper Kupp and keep it simple, which, that will add a little bit of potential for later rounds to pair Cooper Kupp to pair him up with some players that maybe he wouldn't normally get paired up with, but we'll just have to wait and see. Dylan K coming in hot saying Jefferson will never outscore Kupp. I just disagree. I think that the new coach going into Minnesota is a pass-first coach, so they're going to start. It's going to be a little less balance of a offense this next coming year. It's going to be a lot more pass-heavy. So my money's on Jefferson. He's only been in the league for 2 years and has already been, exceeding all expectations. And year 3 is really when wide receivers start to hit their stride. So I appreciate that take, but I just have to disagree. I think that Cooper Kupp is probably going to finish around the 2 to 4 range as far as wide receivers go, obviously barring no injuries. But yeah, I don't think he's number 1 again. Repeating wide receiver 1 2 years in a row is highly unlikely. And so if I have to take a pick for who's going to be number 1, then we're going to go with Justin Jefferson. Jefferson going to need 15 to 20 touchdowns, 2,000 yards, and like 150 catches. Yeah, if he's trying to beat last year's Cooper Kupp, but Cooper Kupp won't get that again. That was a historic year. So, and again, this is my take, but I just don't see Cooper Kupp repeating the same stat line that he did this past year. But then again, could be very wrong, and we have Cooper Kupp on my team right now, so it's not that I'm a Cooper Kupp hater at all. I just think running that back for a second season in a row is unlikely if we're talking about statistics, but it's definitely possible. And Matt Stafford, I think that, I mean, one thing that I will say, and I'm just happy for Matt Stafford because he was suffocated in Detroit. You could see the talent that he had and the the performances he put on in a horrible situation for so many years. So I'm happy for him that he's finally in an offense where he can get recognized. He really went from zero to hero, going from Detroit, which is basically a dead city, to LA being a star. So got to be happy for him. Cup can definitely do that again. Remember the playoffs. No, I trust me. I'm with you. I think Cooper Cup is a stud. Taking nothing away from him. That just shows you how I feel about Justin Jefferson. But again, I think Cooper Cup is. I don't think he flops this year. I think he's gonna have an amazing year again. I just think it's hard to sustain the year that he had last year and repeat it. But no, trust me, I totally agree. I think Cooper Cup is an absolute stud, which is why I probably have Cooper Cup as much as I have Justin Jefferson. Um, but again, if I'm making the bet, then I'm gonna go ahead and take Justin Jefferson where I can. But we're coming up here in our second pick. I'm gonna pull up the big board real fast. No, not autopilot. Did I just auto that? Cooper Cup. Yeah, so I really do want running back here. However, we have Mark Andrews falling to us. I really don't want to take Lamar in a third Best Ball Mania draft. But we're gonna go Mark Andrews. So what I've noticed is that in a lot of these Best Ball Mania drafts, I actually in two of the two that I'm in, I have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews stacked with Lamar Jackson in one of them. I had Mark Andrews fall to the 24th pick in the one draft that I took him. I think that was last video where he's the thumbnail. But I love me some Mark Andrews this year. It really looks like the Ravens aren't going to pick up a free agent. If they do, it'll probably be Will Fuller, which will just be a gunner type of player. They may trade for someone in the middle of the season, but in the meantime, I'm going to keep taking Mark Andrews as our solid tight end option. Now, this will allow us to not go with another tight end for quite a while. Give me one sec. T. Higgins, A.J. Brown. I really am an A.J. Brown hater. It's a boring start. We're going to go ADP, all three picks in the beginning. I really want to go running back with that third pick, but I don't want to reach the ADP pick 32. I think Alvin Kamara probably does get suspended for 6 weeks. I don't think he should. I think he should be more around the fourth pick or the 4-week suspension range. But I don't really want to start reaching on players this early. Obviously, in Best Ball Mania Draft, we want to go with a unique build, some a little different to win us the $2 million. But that's something we can build a little bit later on. But right here, we're setting ourselves up for solid options for stacking with Lamar, Matt Stafford, and Joe Burrow. Wide receiver really is the most important position in these drafts because we have, you're shooting for having 4 wide receiving scores count for you every single week. And what I'm really trying to do is work myself out of the habit of going running back in the first 3 rounds. I do it almost every draft, and it's because of the drop-off that I feel that you hit after James Conner. But I'm really trying to trust the process. Maybe go 3 wide receivers to start, and then maybe go 3 running backs in like the Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins range. So I've been trying to pull back a little bit with my running back heavy starts. And I think in the other 2 Best Ball Mania drafts that we're in, we went with that strategy, going running back heavy. So we're going to switch it up here, get some solid wide receivers. Obviously, T. Higgins, we've seen him produce with Jamar Chase on the field. But then obviously, if anything happens to Jamar Chase, which we never hope for, but if it did, then T. Higgins becomes a potential top 5 wide receiver basically overnight. And obviously without the injury, he still has a ceiling of a very high ceiling. He has a lower floor than most receivers you get in this range, than like a Keenan Allen, let's just say. But his ceiling is absolutely through the roof. I see we got Chris in here. What's going on, baby? Who is this? Do you know him? Wait, where's he picking? Chris says that MRE 6V whatever is in our draft. I don't know who that is, but Chris does. He is picking at this 8th overall starting position. He went Najee Harris, Javonte Williams to start, and Cortland Sutton. I had this conversation with Chris on the last video, but I really have been betting on the Broncos wide receivers to be the breakout candidates this year, kind of like a Cooper Kupp was last year. He is betting on Juju Smith-Schuster, which I think is very fair. But where I'm putting my money is Jerry Jeudy. He's a young stud on an offense that's going to have a Hall of Famer quarterback step in. And maybe this is a little bit of what am I thinking of? Nostalgia, looking back at the Broncos getting a Hall of Fame quarterback late in their career and absolutely blowing up and performing. So maybe that's why I'm counting on it. I think Jerry Judy's an absolute stud and really hasn't gotten any opportunity. But when I'm putting my money on a blow-up wide receiver, I'm going with the Denver Broncos wide receiving room. But, Juju Smith, I'm never going to argue against that. I do think he is primed for a huge year as well. I just think he's more of a potential I think he's more of like a possession receiver than like a high ceiling receiver. I think he's more of like a Keenan Allen where he'll get you solid 20 points every week. Oh my God, we have no running backs in this range either. Do we just keep going wide receiver? Yeah, Dylan. Yep. I mean, I think Judy really is primed, and I think a lot of people try to compare the Broncos receivers with the Seahawks and say that since Jerry Judy's smaller, he's like the Tyler Lockett, but I disagree. I think Jerry Jeudy can be pretty much a do-it-all receiver. I don't know who to go here, though. We might just go another wide receiver, Deontay Johnson or Jerry Jeudy while we're talking about him. But we're going to let this pick Deontay Johnson and hope we get Jerry Jeudy on the return. I really do want some running backs here, but I don't feel like I want to reach this far. I might reach a J.K. Dobbins at 52, but I wouldn't be surprised if I just go ahead and lock in another receiver. Because what that will do is that'll allow us to build a team with only 7 wide receivers if we go 4 right off the bat, and 2 tight ends, being that we got Mark Andrews. And then we will be able to hammer some running backs a little bit in the middle range and get 6 running backs. So we might try that out because, like I said, I never do that, and I need to start getting practice with it. I think you can really build some juggernaut teams drafting that way. I'm just usually too scared to do it, to be honest. So why not give it a shot? This is kind of a random Best Ball Mania draft. I wasn't expecting to do it this year or today, so let's just have some fun with it. We're talking about Jerry Jeudy. He's still available behind ADP, so let's just take him. Let's just lock in these wide receivers. We're pretty much set. We'll take 3 later on in the draft. But like I said, you are looking for 4 wide receivers to count for your score every single week. So drafting 4 right off the bat isn't useless. I mean, that we're hoping that they perform every week and count for our 3 wide receiver positions and then our 1 flex. So we're definitely looking for running backs on the way back through, but as of now, I really like this. What this also does is it allows us to look for a stack with Matt Stafford, Joe Burrow, and Russell Wilson in a little bit. I don't think Joe Burrow makes it back to us, but if he does, he might actually. I don't know if I take him here, though, depending on what the running backs look like. We'll just have to wait and see. Because I really do want to take... I'm going to have to take probably 1 quarterback here and then 3 running backs. But I'm shooting for people like Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt. Let's see. Obviously, any of these 3, if they're, well, I don't know. Antonio Gibson, I think, is a player that has a very high ceiling and a very low floor. It's in the range of outcomes where he doesn't fumble at all, comes in, shows the talent that he is a do-it-all back, and ends the season in a top 12 performance, top 10 performance. But it's also in the range of outcomes that he comes out, fumbles in the first week, and gets benched. So I haven't been drafting barely any Antonio Gibson, but we will take him if he's... Well, I'm not even going to say we will take him because I also like A.J. Dillon. I like the very talented handcuff running backs because if we're killing the running back room by volume and going with 6, then if we have 6 extremely talented handcuff running backs that have a weekly usage rate, then If anything happens as far as injury to one or to any of those players, then we're looking at a juggernaut team kind of overnight with this wide receiver and tight end start. So that's the idea here moving forward. Dylan says I'd like to start. I would have gone Judy and Mahomes with the 2 picks, though I'm not a Johnson fan. Yeah, I mean, see, the thing with Mahomes is you're probably trying to shoot for a stack. The only thing is after where's Juju? Juju's probably gone, huh? Yeah, after Juju, I'm really not. I mean, other than Juju and Kelsey, I'm not really looking to stack with Sky Moore or Marquez Valdez Scantling, which is why I really don't have that much Patrick Mahomes because I feel like you have to go Juju pretty early. Where is Juju? Yeah, you have to go Juju pretty early. I mean, I have the stack in a few different leagues, um, but right here at this pick where Juju was already gone, I'm not really looking for Patrick Mahomes. I'm really looking for the Joe Burrows, the Russell Wilsons, Matt Staffords, and Deontay Johnson. I think it's a fair point to not be in on him. However, I'm in on him because he had a very respectable season last year with the worst quarterback or one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in Ben Roethlisberger. He was not who he's not. He was not that Hall of Fame Ben Roethlisberger that we're used to seeing. He was a shell of himself, and I really wasn't looking to be involved with that last year. But this year, I think Mitchell Trubisky is a step up from what Ben Roethlisberger was last year. Not a big step up, but I think he was a step up. Now here, I'm just trying to decide if I want to pass on Joe Burrow and go A.J. Dillon. Yeah, we're going to pass, and we're going to go A.J. Dillon. I think a lot of the offense gets run through A.J. Dillon this year, being that the receivers are non-existent. I think even if OBJ signs to the Packers, I think he has a big role in 7 weeks, and then he gets injured again. I don't see him lasting an entire season, and the receivers they have right now are basically lining up, so they're going to have to lean on Aaron Jones a lot in the passing game, which will open up a lot of goal line touches for A.J. Dillon. And again, if anything happens to Aaron Jones during the season at all, A.J. Dillon could easily finish as a top 10 or higher back. But right here, we will go for Joe Burrow, being that he's finally behind ADP and we have T. Higgins. Get ourselves a stack. Get ourselves a solid QB1. We're balancing out the team a little bit now, but I will say I'm looking for Matt Stafford's at 95. I would love to pick him up in this range, maybe at pick 100. We'll try to go running back at 93, Matt Stafford at 100, and then running backs for 4 rounds after that. Okay, so Dylan, you seem to like this draft. My question to you is: are you usually doing this wide receiver heavy in the beginning? And if you are, my question to you is: how do you make up for running backs later on? Because I mean, my only strategy for making up for these running back or missing out on all these running backs in the first 5 rounds is just kill it by volume and grab these handcuffs running backs. But like I said, most of my experience is grabbing 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. So I would be interested to see what you have to say about that because I haven't been able to get comfortable with drafting, like waiting till the 6th round to pick a running back. I feel like you have to have at least one quarterback before pick 100 because after Aaron Rodgers, the drop off at quarterback is pretty big, and I think if you're waiting that long, you have to go 3 quarterbacks. Which I don't necessarily like doing. I'd rather put that extra player in the wide receiver position and give ourselves a potential lottery ticket, kind of like an Amon-Ra St. Brown was last year. So I don't usually like going 3 quarterbacks in a non-superflex league. But this one, I mean, I could see it happening. If Matt Stafford goes before pick 100, I might just kick quarterback off till way later, grab a bunch of running backs, and go with the 3 quarterback team here just because we have a solid a solid tight end 1 and a solid wide receiver room. So I can basically minus a player from each of those categories and free up a position to go for a third quarterback and 6 running backs. That's the build that's kind of lining up if Matt Stafford doesn't fall to 100, because I'm not going to reach on him at 93. We are in too desperate need of a running back. What did Chris say about Mr. Evil? Oh, we're drafting against Christopher in here. All right, let's see what your team looks like. You took Russell Wilson, you bitch. Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Juju. Yep, I should have known it was you. Josh Jacobs. Yeah, so this is more of the build that I usually go with. I usually go double running back, grab a third one in this Josh Jacobs range. I've said it 100 times. I think the drop off after Josh Jacobs is huge. I think he's the last bell cow running back you can get, because I don't have any faith in Antonio Gibson. Elijah Mitchell you can make a case for sure. I'm a little worried about him starting just because of the San Francisco 49ers track record, but that could just be me making a bad call. So right here, we're definitely looking for a running back, and we have plenty available to us. It's just a matter of who we want. And I think I already know the answer. May surprise a couple of you, but if you've seen any of my videos, probably not. We're going to go Kareem Hunt right here. I think the talent is absolutely incredible. He's a lot younger than you would think. I thought he was kind of getting up there in age because he had such insane early season success or early career success that you would think that he's older than he is, but he's only 26. He's 1 year older than me, and I still feel pretty young, depending on the day. So I'm gonna take him. I think Matt Stafford went. He did go. I think that the entire Browns offense goes through the run game because, I don't think Deshaun Watson plays at all this year, and Jacoby Brissett, you want the ball in his hands as little as possible. So, that's kind of where I'm going with that. Now, the question for me here is going Ken Walker or Melvin Gordon. I think Melvin Gordon is the safer pick. But Ken Walker is more of the ceiling. We're going to go Melvin Gordon here. I think we kind of have our lottery ticket picks here with A.J. Dillon and Kareem Hunt, and I really want a lower ceiling, higher floor player to just give us a nice rock to hold on to in the running back room. So that's why I went with him over Ken Walker, because I will say everyone's excited about Ken Walker, and trust me, I am too. I have him in. My exposure to Ken Walker is absolutely incredible. I have him in so many teams because a running back going where he went with a 4.3 40, that doesn't always translate in the wide receiving core when you have a very fast 40. Some of those receivers are absolute busts. Usually when you have that fast of a 40 with the size that Kenneth Walker has, usually that translates pretty much verbatim to the NFL. But my only worry is that Rashad Penny is an absolute stud running back as well when he's on the field. So I think he's only played 6 games since he's been drafted in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So he is extremely injury prone, which is why people are so scared of picking him, although his ADP has been rising over the past few weeks. But if he's able to stay healthy, then Kenneth Walker, at best, is going to be a handcuff running back. So I'm a little bit nervous to take him since I realized how good of a prospect Rashad Penny was and how much he's performed since when he actually plays. But that being said, I take him all the time. Hunt, another guy go for. Dylan, you seem to be reading my mind today. Chris says, I'm fine taking Penny, Harris, Rojo, and rookie running backs when I go early. I think Rojo is an extremely... I think he could surprise a lot of people this year. I think in Tampa Bay, with Lenny being there and the coaching staff being kind of treating the running back position as they do, is just kind of wishy-washy. like if you fumble, you get pulled for the rest of the game, committee type offense. I don't know if he was really given a fair shot. So that in combination with Jerick McKinnon and CEH being smaller backs, I think Rojo's goal line presence could be way more valuable than where he's being drafted right now. So I totally buy the Ronald Jones draft pick, and I would even take him over CEH. I am not a CEH fan. Don't have any exposure to him, and I will finish the offseason with zero exposure to him. I think he gets faded out. He was already getting faded out in the playoffs last year for Jerick McKinnon, so I have been taking Jerick McKinnon. But I think CEH is just a straight up bust. So that also is why I'm as high on Rojo as I am. We got another pick coming up here. I'm gonna pick Chase Edmonds if he's available. He goes. Maybe we continue the theme of handcuff running backs, like we said with Alexander Madison. I could go Kirk Cousins here. I could go. Hmm. No, we're gonna go Alexander Madison. I almost pulled the trigger on Kirk Cousins just because of what we were talking about earlier with Justin Jefferson and that offense probably being a extremely pass happy offense. But I think with the build we have, we already talked about it earlier on that I want the extremely talented handcuff running backs, which, I mean, if you look at our running back room, this is how you recover from taking 5 non running backs in the first few rounds, or at least this is what makes me comfortable. If Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, or Dalvin Cook, or Javonte Williams goes down, these guys shoot up in value, and if not, they still have a role. These three more so than Alexander Madison. Usually, Alexander Madison gets minimal touches when oh when Dalvin Cook's able to play, but if anything happens to Dalvin Cook, which it usually does, then we will be sitting pretty. I don't really like Damian Pierce. I could go Ronald Jones. We were just talking about him, but what I'm gonna go ahead and do is take Justin Fields right here. This will allow me to not take 3 quarterbacks. I would also be down to take Tua if I had a stack in Tyreek Hill. But I don't, and I think after Tua, you have a pretty big drop off. I think Trevor Lawrence disappoints. Jameis Winston is someone I've been taking in the later rounds, but I really want to avoid taking 3 quarterbacks, and Justin Fields is kind of, or I guess Tua is kind of the last guy that I would be confident in doing that. So we're going to go ahead and take Justin Fields there, which will set us up for a potential Cole Kmet, stack for our second tight end. So then our tight end room will be absolutely solid. I'm very comfortable in the running back and wide receiver room as we sit. And really, our entire team is now balanced out to where I feel like I could take value, which you guys know that's how I like playing these drafts. I like getting a hot start in a certain position, then balancing the team out so that I can start grabbing the values in this middle, 11, maybe not middle, but this like 11 to 18 round area. That's usually when you get a lot of value falling to you, and I'm setting myself up to take them when they do fall. So that's the strategy here. That's been the strategy, and that's how we're going to continue. I think we did recover nicely from not going any running backs in the first 5 rounds. So I'm a little more comfortable than usual. I think we are getting better with the 0 running back build, but we probably have a little ways to go as well. Sleeping on Rashad White. You think so? Yeah, I mean, it is obvious that the Bucks like having. I mean, we just talked about it. They like having a committee in the running back room, and they use both running backs. So I think Rashad White definitely has a role immediately. I just don't necessarily like the prospect, but I could see where you're coming from. But I will say I have very few, if any, exposure to Rashad White. But then again, you have to remember, I am usually a running back first team, so I'm usually done picking running backs in that middle-ish range, and I'm picking my last running backs as late as like Marlon Mack, because I usually go 3 in the beginning and then punt the last 2 at the end. So that might just be because of strategy as well. Eckler gets hurt, and he does, I could see Spiller being a decent lucky bet. I agree with that as well. I pick Isaiah Spiller a lot, and we actually might be getting set up to pick him here again. Funny enough. Actually, this could be funny if we have Rashad White goes. I was hoping we got Rashad White and Isaiah Spiller just based off of the conversation, but they actually both go. Tua ended up making it back to us, so maybe we should have went running back there. Maybe that was a mistake. I didn't know he was going to fall 11 picks based on value, obviously, but now seeing him sitting right here, I kind of wish I went with someone else earlier on. So we're going to go Cole Kmet here, lock down the tight end room, but I do want to look back and see who we could have got instead of Justin Fields. And I mean, Damian Pierce was the best running back available, but I'm not buying in on him, especially on a bad offense. I think their offense is better than it was last year, but I'm not making the bet on Damian Pierce. If at all, I'm betting on Marlon Mack. So I'm not really kicking myself for not picking him and not reaching on like Naheem Hines or Rashad White because that was kind of that's kind of far. But I guess I could have went with another receiver. But I mean, now that we have the Cole Kmet stack, I'm really not kicking myself as much as I probably was originally. But right here, we're gonna go with Michael Carter Jr. Lock it down. Very low on Tyler Algier. He's on a bad offense. He was not that great of a prospect. It's not like he dominated in college. So I'm not really rushing to pick him. I usually, like when I have my 3 running backs start, I usually will pick him as like kind of that late round potential. I don't even know because he's not even like a breakout candidate, to be honest. He's just kind of like a goal line back. You might get 10 points out of him here and there, which is why he's pretty boring to me. Usually in these later rounds, I like picking running backs that have blow up potential. I think Darrell Williams is a great pick. I think Tyrion Davis-Price is a great pick in this range. I think Kenneth Gainwell is a great pick in this range. So I'm usually going with them over Tyler Algier if I can. But a lot of times he falls, so I do have him in a few leagues. So we have 5 running backs now. And now we're at the point where we're not pressed on running backs. We're done with quarterback. We're done with tight end. So really, for these last few rounds, we're just going best available at the running back and wide receiver position. We do need to start getting some wide receivers. I think they're a little bit more of a priority than running backs at this point. But since we have the wide receivers that we do to start, then if we get a running back value that I like fall to us, we'll pick them. But that just reminded me that Mr. Evil is in here. So let's take a look at what he's done since we looked at him last. He went Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton stack. I love that. Went Juju, sticking to the script with him. Running backs being Javonte, Najee, and Josh Jacobs. So I'm basically fighting you with Javonte here. You have the double stack with Russell Wilson also, I just noticed. That's nice. I think Najee Harris is the best security blanket running back you can get in the league. I'm extremely high on Najee Harris this year, regardless of what other people are saying. Cortland Sutton, Juju, Josh Jacobs he's my highest pick player, Josh Jacobs. So I love that pick. Alan Lazard, Russell Wilson, Chris Olave, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, Ronald Jones, Noah Fant. Yeah, it's a solid looking team. Although you will be fighting, you probably have to take 3 tight ends here. I'm assuming that's what you're going with. I have a lot of Noah Fant myself. I have a lot of Logan Thomas. I have a lot of Braven Jordan. Because I think tight end is one of those positions that if you don't get like a George Kittle and before, so George Kittle, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, if you don't get one of those tight ends, I'm so fine with just punting them. I mean, Dalton Schultz I think he has a lot of potential this year too. But I mean, after that, I'm totally fine just going 3 tight ends and picking just kind of anybody really, because tight ends are so touchdown dependent. They're so inconsistent and spike weeky that I think volume is the way to go if you're not getting a hyper targeted tight end. So you see him go Austin Hooper here, which I'm not surprised at either. Considering we've had this conversation on how you feel about Austin Hooper already. Um, but we are coming up here at 165. We're looking for best available. Jameis Winston still available. Kenneth Gainwell and Darrell Williams both still available. We're at pick. What pick are we at? We're at pick 165, I think. Yeah, 165. Kenneth Gainwell is 10 picks behind ADP. We're gonna go ahead, take him, and basically be done with running backs here at the 6 running back build. And now we will just hammer wide receiver for the next 4 picks, I believe. Yeah. So this is the first time that I did a 0 running back build through the first 5 rounds, and actually feel pretty good about my running backs. So that kind of opens the door for this strategy in the future. I really like how my team is looking because, when you have these 4 wide receivers to start, it definitely adds some confidence in the wide receiver room to where I don't feel like I have to pick a bunch of wide receivers. I can just go more selective and just catch up on running backs in those middle rounds. So we're going to pick a wide receiver here. It's just between George Pickens and Marvin Jones for me. So if either one of them goes here, then we'll pick the other. If not, I'm probably going Marvin Jones over George Pickens. Sammy Watkins, I'm negative interested in, so that's fine with me. I think Marvin Jones is still the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, even though they just signed Christian Kirk to a massively overpriced deal. I just think he's kind of like your deep threat. Like, I think he takes the top off the defenses, but I'm just, I really don't. I think I have one team in my 50 drafts with Christian Kirk, just because I really do think Marvin Jones sees the majority of the targets in that offense. Does Trevor Lawrence take the step this year? Yes. It's just how big of the step. It's hard to say because Urban Myers was such a wet blanket on that team. How do you succeed when you have a rookie quarterback and that at head coach? Probably the worst. I'm not that old, so I don't know too much history in the NFL, but he might have been the worst coach that the NFL has ever seen. And so I think that leaves a huge question mark on the entire Jacksonville Jaguars offense and probably team as a whole this year, because they have extreme amount of talent, very young talent at that. Both the running backs are studs. I think that Laviska Shenault is extremely athletic. I think he has a Deebo Samuel-esque play style. I think Marvin Jones is very good. I think Christian Kirk is a good deep threat. I think Trevor Lawrence, I don't know. I think they have a lot of potential on the team. It's just if they can put it together, and it all starts with Trevor Lawrence. So I think that Trevor Lawrence does have some rapport with Marvin Jones from last year, and they had some pretty decent weeks, especially in the beginning of the year. So we'll just have to wait and see, but I do like Marvin Jones in this range. Yeah, I don't know. Where was Zay Jones last year? He was on the Raiders last year. Marvin Jones is definitely old, but I think he is kind of the veteran presence in that offense. So I do think he still has some juice in the tank. He did show it last year, so um, I'm going to continue to pick him in that range. However, I will say I've been picking a lot of George Pickens just based off of the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver drafting abilities because I'm a Ravens fan and I've seen it very up close and personal. The Steelers, the drafted Steelers wide receivers are always studs. That in combination with George Pickens falling in the draft to where he did based off of off-field issues, you kind of see a lot of potential in talent there when a player falls that far. Because if they can keep him on the straight and narrow, then his ceiling is basically uncapped. So I think George Pickens is a huge blow-up candidate for his rookie season. But I will say I'd probably say 50-50 between George Pickens and Marvin Jones. Okay. I guess we'll have to wait and see here, Chris. I'm kind of fighting you in a few of these picks because you have basically the entire Broncos offense other than Jerry Jeudy. and Melvin Gordon, which I have both of them. I'm going to look at your team again after this turn. I'm glad you're getting the players you like, but I'm also getting the players I like, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm gonna have to mark this league down because I want to keep track of it since you're in the league. I want to honestly, if I don't win the league and I beat you, that's all I care about. That's all I care about. I just want to beat you. But we're going wide receiver here. We're gonna go Will Fuller as we usually do. And Chris, I hope you know that if I do lose to you this in this league, I'm gonna blame it on you being in the draft room and you stealing all my picks. I mean, you can say that's not what you're doing, but that's not how I'm gonna tell the story if I lose. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Yeah, so you did go three tight ends in a row. I love the tight end picks. Noah Fant, Austin Hooper, David Njoku, all great tight ends. When you pair them up with each other, and go with three of them, I think they all have some breakout potential. I think they are all very talented. So I love that tight end room that you drafted, and again, you're staying on brand, grabbing Nico Collins. So I'm not surprised there either. But we're gonna go with a young stud of our own. Or are we? I think you know who I want for my last wide receiver pick. But right now, we're going to go with a young stud lottery ticket player, David Bell. I've been hearing really good things about him. I know Jacoby Brissett is his quarterback, but I like the prospects. So we're going to go ahead and take him. I'm not picking AJ Green in this range. The only other player that I will potentially pick is Julio Jones, but to Dylan's point, he's also probably 100 years old. So I've been kind of throttling that pick back a little bit. But you already know who we're shooting for here at the end or the last pick of the draft. We're 15 picks away, so let's tune in live to Mr. Evil. If you take my player, it'll just give me a ticket to blame you being in the draft as an excuse. I will say your wide receiver room scares me a little bit. Although I know you love Juju. I really do like Cortland. I think your running backs are all low ceiling, high floor players. So I don't think you're getting your spike weeks at the running back position as you would in like Alvin Kamara or Brees Hall. Like I think you're really just building a very solid 20 point per player running back room in those top three picks. And then you went Ronald Jones, which we talked about him. Love that pick. You went with Davis Mills stacked with Nico Collins. Okay, so that was your second quarterback in the entire draft. So I'm assuming you'll go with a third, but we'll just have to wait and see. Appreciate it, Dylan. Thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate you coming out. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I enjoyed hanging out with you. So even if you don't, I appreciate it. I always appreciate the live draft. This is honestly so much more fun when I get some people in here and we can chat while we do it, because talking for an hour straight to myself is sometimes I run out of things to say. So I enjoy you guys being in here. I appreciate you guys being in here to chat and hang out with me while we do this. I love these drafts. These are one of my favorite things to do. I look forward to it all day. So I appreciate you guys stopping by to hang out. I'm really curious to see what Mr. Evil does here, though. I'm kind of cherry picking off of your strategy because I mean, if you guys don't know, Chris is always in the comment section and probably the past 10 videos since he's found us, and always has some really solid points. So I do value his opinion and his draft strategy here. I think Chris Olave might be one of your your lottery ticket players. Wild card. Who's a wild card? Yep. Yeah. So okay. So you did go three quarterbacks. I had a feeling you probably would. I think Mitchell Trubisky is a great pick, especially this late, and he was one of my hammer picks in the super flex drafts because you can grab him for late, and I know people think that Kenny Pickett is going to come in here midway through the season and take over the role, but I just don't see it. I think Mitchell Trubisky finishes the season as the quarterback in Pittsburgh, and I think he has a ton of great weapons. I mean, Pat Fryermuth is a stud at tight end. All of his receivers are studs. Najee Harris is a stud. I think his line is pretty bad, but other than that, he's definitely in a better situation than he was in Chicago. I will say that. Locking up both wide receivers on New England guarantees me a score. Oh, do you have Devontae Parker too? Yeah, I mean, your scores better come from Devontae Parker because Jacoby Myers can do everything but score. I think he had one touchdown through like what was it, 13 weeks last year. But then again, it's like that probably was just pretty fluky. And I did hear that Mac Jones has been taking quite the step this offseason. So I've been taking a lot of Devontae Parker. Unfortunately, I was trying to go John Mechie. That's who I was talking about when we were talking about who you thought I was going to go. But we're sitting here at the 213, and we're going to go ahead and take James Washington. Now, the thing I'll say about James Washington is he was one of those Pittsburgh Steelers drafted wide receivers. Michael Gallup will be injured for the first. He says he's shooting to be back week 1. I doubt it. I think he'll be out for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And James Washington is potentially the second option in the receiving core. And even if he's not, we've seen the third option in the receiving core get plenty of work last year with Michael Gallup when he was healthy. So I do like James Washington here. And, Jalen Tolbert, I'm just not interested in at all. So I forget who hold up. Let me see. Let me pull this back up before we get out of here. Yeah, and like OBJ, I've been really throttling. AJ Green, not interested. I think AJ Green will have a solid first 6 weeks while DeAndre Hopkins is out. But Rondale Moore is a freak athlete. Marquise Brown is there now. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the wide receiver 1, obviously, when he comes back. Zach Ertz, James Conner. I just don't see much room for AJ Green. So I'm not picking him. So I do like going James Washington there. He looked good at Pitt. Ben just couldn't throw deep. You talking about Kenny Pickett? I mean, I don't know. I think it was no question that this was one of the worst quarterback drafts in the past 10 years. And Kenny Pickett was he was the first to go. Yeah, Kenny Pickett was the first to go. So I think he has potential, but I just think he's a quarterback that has to sit for a year behind a veteran, learn some about the NFL, and then maybe he'll be good in a couple years. But this year, I don't see it happening. James Washington. Oh, yeah, he did. He was more of like a deep threat, but trust me, my Ravens got burned by James Washington plenty. So I heard talks about him not even making the roster in Dallas, which is just, that's just ridiculous. Because I do agree, he had plenty of production in Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh just keeps drafting studs at wide receiver, so they need to make room for their new stud. So that's probably why they got rid of him and didn't re-sign him. So I think he still has plenty left in the tank. I don't think it was a talent issue, to be honest. So I agree. I think James Washington could easily pick up where Michael Gallup left off as the third option in the wide receiver core. Michael Gallup slides up, and Jalen Tolbert kind of takes that Cedric Wilson role. So I agree. That was a lot of fun. I'm really glad you got in this draft. That was kind of cool. I'm glad we ended up doing the Best Ball Mania so we could draft with you. I cannot wait to beat you in this league. We're going to go back and look at your team one more time. And in the meantime, Chris, if you're still in here, look at my team as well and pick who you want to be the thumbnail. Try to pick someone that I haven't picked already. If you want to, you don't have to. But we're going to go back through your team here real quick. Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, Josh Jacobs, Ronald Jones at running back. So you went with 4 running backs, so that's pretty low. But you have 4 solid running backs, so that's, you probably could get away with that. Cortland Sutton, Juju, Alan Lazard, Chris Olave, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So you have 2 wide receivers in the Kansas City room, so you're basically guaranteeing any production there other than Sky Moore. You have Jacoby Myers and Devontae Parker, so you doubled up on New England as well. You went with Ronald Jones, Then you went triple tight ends, which we talked about. I love the tight ends that you ended up going with. I think this is how you recover, not going tight end early. So I love this strategy, and I probably have some teams with these exact three tight ends as well. You went with Nico Collins, which we've had that conversation before. Love him. Love John Mechie in these later rounds. And then you went with Davis Mills and Mitchell Trubisky for your last two quarterbacks. I think Davis Mills takes a little bit of a step, and people forget that he had some pretty solid production last year already at for being a rookie. So I think Davis Mills you can get some solid production out of as well. So I really do like your team. Unfortunately, I don't like your team as much as mine. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna read through that real quick. So the team I just read was Mr. Evil, aka Christopher Davis. But my quarterbacks are Joe Burrow and Justin Fields. My running backs are A.J. Dillon, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Alexander Madison, Michael Carter, and Kenneth Gainwell. All handcuff running backs. Wide receivers are Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Jones, William Fuller, David Bell, James Washington, and then tight ends are Mark Andrews and Cole Kmet. So Chris says my team's going to smash. Instead of Carter, I would have picked the Brian Robinson or Marlon Mack. Yeah, I mean, let me see something real quick. Where'd I pick Michael Carter? Michael Carter was right at 148. And you said who? Brian Robinson or Marlon Mack? Yeah, they're later. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Brian Robinson, I'm interested in just because of what we said about Antonio Gibson earlier on. I think it's possible that he fumbles in the beginning of the season and never sees the field again. J.D. McKissic's never going to be a 3-down back, so Brian Robinson would then assume a role. So I understand that take. And Marlon Mack, I've picked plenty of. Trust me, I agree. I think Marlon Mack is an absolute steal in these later rounds when you can get him because you're potentially picking a fairly decent starting running back on a young team at the 16th round. So I agree with I see the value in both those running backs. My thought process here was I think Michael Carter is going to be he's still going to have a role. I think he'll still have a role in the beginning of the season. Probably have a lighter role towards the end of the season. But I will say I think that he has a lower or a higher floor than both Brian Robinson and Marlon Mack. And being that I went with no running backs through the first 5 rounds, I really wanted to smash these middle, this 8th to 10th or 8 to 14th round range in running back. So that was my strategy. I definitely get the take on both those running backs though. If it doesn't matter after round 14, 15. No, I agree with you. Because if you look at the last, it definitely matters, but it matters less, which is why I usually end up with the players I like in those ranges because people kind of stray away from ADP at that point. So I agree with that, but I will say at the end of the day, if I'm picking Michael Carter or Brian Robinson, I'm still going to pick Michael Carter. If I'm picking Michael Carter or Marlon Mack, that's a little bit more of a toss-up, but I'm still picking Michael Carter. Especially being that he's my 5th running back option, and then we free up this range for wide receiver because when I picked Michael Carter, my only other option was to go wide receiver, and the wide receivers in this range are disgusting for me. I don't like Joshua Palmer. DJ Chark's only going to be good in the beginning of the year. Corey Davis, not a fan. Van Jefferson will have 2 spike weeks. KJ Hamler, potential breakout, but nah, I like the Michael Carter pick. Wouldn't change it, but I do see your point here because one thing I will say is I think the range of wide receiver that you get in the 15th to 18th range, I think this is where you get a lot of lottery tickets. So we went running back early and then freed us up at the end of the draft. But I'll definitely hear your case for the opposite strategy that we just talked about. Me too, man. I'm gonna keep a tab on this one, bookmark it, and I'm gonna probably check on this one more so than the other ones, just because I just want to beat you. That's all I care about. Does I think 2 teams makes it past the into the tournament, so that'd be kind of crazy if it was both of us too. Although I will say we have some common interests on our team, so it probably will be one or the other in as far as who succeeds, considering we have some contradicting players here. But Chris, Dylan, whoever the third one was, appreciate you guys for coming out. Appreciate chatting. I'm going to say it, even though you guys probably already know. If you want to sign up for Underdog Fantasy and get into some of these drafts, go on. Your first deposit between $10 and $100 gets matched at 100%. If you use code FFX54, that supports me, helps me get in a couple more drafts. But we do these every day. As the season approaches, we're going to start doing some ranking videos, so we'll get involved with that as well. But I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate the support. Everyone have a great night. Eat some good food, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.